Another term which is zombie in economic survey. Are you aware of it? Zombie?
No, sir, I'm not.
Yes.
I've
Why?
not gone through the economic survey yet, sir. So I'll go through that as soon as possible.
No, why? Because your graduation is economics, so that is the reason I asked those questions. Uh, Pratibha Puraskar for meritorious performance in class 12th. What is this Pratibha Puraskar?
Sir, it's an award by the state government for the students who secured the best marks in that particular stream, sir, for the top one, two, three candidates in that particular stream. It was by the Andhra Pradesh state government, which I got for getting the good marks in class 12.
Okay. And you got first position in the state level quiz by SFI. SFI?
The Student Federation of India.
So are you tilted towards any political party?
No, sir, it was just a general meet of all the cultural level meet organized by SFI in collaboration with the local college. So
Okay.
it was just
SFI is a student organization of which political party?
the Communist Party.
General Secretary of the Planning Forum in college. What planning?
So it's called the planning forum, but it's not exactly related to the planning as such. It's involved in terms of organizing key lectures in the college by eminent dignitaries. For instance, the key economists of the country or people who are involved in the planning and policy making of the country. We invite them and we have lectures, discussions, and competitions in terms of policy making in college.
Have you participated actively in such planning?
No, so we don't do the planning as such, but I am part of the team which brings these plannings
Organized.
to the yes, sir, part of that.
One big thing is you are the treasurer of Malayalam Literary Society in your college. You are Telugu. Mother tongue is Telugu. It is written as Telugu and it is a Malayalam literary. What is there is a paradox.
Sir, so my position as such is not connected to the literature of Malayalam as such, because I was a treasurer. But ever since the beginning of college, I was very interested in terms of the cultural context that the Telugu has had with other cultures. Sir. So as such, I was keenly involved with that organization from my first year. And in my second year, I was made the treasurer of that particular society, sir. So my forte was in terms of uh, reaching out to the corporate companies and making up sponsorship deals, and then bringing in the money for the events and others of the society as such. So the Malayalam Literary Society. So that was my role in those societies, and not related to Malayalam literature as such,
Not related to language.
not related to that.
Cooking is your hobby.
Yes,
So you cook or you eat.
I cook, sir, and also
Okay.
eat.
Okay. What type of cooking you do?
I basically cook most of the Indian food and particularly so of the Telugu cuisine. So that is my area of interest.
There is a term called as probiotics. Are you aware of it?
Yes, I have heard the term.
Yes.
My understanding is that these are the ones that are made that are healthy supplements to the natural vitamins or the minerals that we get from other sources. A lot of people face the issue of not having enough nutrients and particularly the micronutrients and minerals. So these probiotics are easy and healthy supplements to that is what I believe.
Okay. What is this continental food?
A continental food is the food that is basically cooked in the Europe, the continental Europe. It usually involves the English, the French, and the Italian cuisines. That is what is a continental cuisine. It is
So,
very low on spices and is more involved in terms of herbs and wines and oils.
okay. So they use olive oil.
Yes, sir.
In India, do we use olive oil?
No, sir, we do not. Not a lot.
Why? What would be the reason?
Primarily is it's slightly on the expensive side. It's not very affordable for a lot of people. And one more issue with olive oil is while it has high of health contents. It is not in terms of unsaturated fats. In fact, olive oil has the highest unsaturated fats content amongst all the oils. But it does not have an ideal omega fatty acid 6 to omega fatty acid 3 ratio, sir, which we call N6 to N3 ratio. That should be ideal balance for it to be healthy for the people, sir. So olive oil has that shortcoming in terms of not having an ideal N6 to N3 ratio. That is another reason I can think of why there is not a huge substitution towards olive oil.
So you did your graduation in economics, that too in a good university, then you opted for optional sociology. What made you to take optional sociology? Economics would be good now.
I've spoken to my seniors who have taken economics optional and the people who cleared and are in the service currently. And most of them tell me that economics either requires more understanding than what we were taught at graduation level and requires some sort of external coaching. Sir. Since I've moved back home, there is no option of getting a coaching as such here. And I thought it is something that I need to teach myself. I'll take something that's easier for me to do so than it is for economics, which is more of a technical subject and requires more external support.
So as your optional is sociology, I want to ask you one term, Karl Marx term, dialectical materialism. What does it mean?
Sir, the idea of dialectics is that there is always one truth, and there is also another facet to it, which is called the anti-truth. And over the years, these two will synthesize, resulting in another truth in the coming years. So there is a cycle of truth, anti-truth, both of them synthesizing and coming to another truth, and this cycle will go on. This is dialectical approach. Whereas in terms of materialism, sir, while the predecessors of Marx were invested in the idealism, which is they thought there will be one idea, there will be a contrary idea to it, and eventually both will synthesize, resulting in a new idea. Marx has diverged from this particular thought of approach and moved to dialectical materialism, where he says there will be one material condition and there will come about another material condition which is in contradiction to the first one, and both of them will synthesize, resulting in a new material condition, which is what Marx talks about in his entire theory of historical evolution.
Very good. Yes. So I want to ask you a few questions on current affairs because economics is your graduation. Tiger economy countries. What are those tiger economy countries?
So these are the East Asian economies, particularly the Southeast Asian economies, which have achieved phenomenal growth rates in the late 70s and 90s because of a lot of reforms and all of that. These
Can
are
you
called
name
the
those? There are four tiger economy countries are there. Can you name those?
I'll try to recall. I'm not very sure of getting the full names, but uh, Singapore, Korea, that is all I can think of.
Okay.
Thailand too, if I'm not wrong.
Yes. It's Hong Kong, Singapore, South Korea, and Taiwan. Uh,
Taiwan.
yes. Pro-cyclical fiscal policy. Pro-cyclical fiscal policy is very much in news.
Yes, sir.
Are you aware of it?
Yes, I am.
Yes.
So, pro-cyclical fiscal policy is to do with what fiscal policy the government does in tandem or against the business cycles in the country. So, pro-cyclical business policy is when there is a boom in the country, an economic boom in the country, you spend more or you tax lesser in a boom. And similarly, when there is a recession in the country, you spend lesser and you tax higher so as to shore up your revenues. So that is a pro-cyclical fiscal policy. Whereas in the current scenario where because of the pandemic and subdued private expenditure, there is a huge push for the counter-cyclical fiscal policy, sir, where when there is a recession in the country or when there is an economic down, there will be a huge expenditure by the public sector and there will be a reduction in the taxes so as to boost up the consumption of the people. So that is a counter-cyclical fiscal policy which is being advocated for the current times.
Are you aware of development financial institutions? In budget, they mentioned about development financial institutions.
Yes, sir. So they're planning to set up a couple of development financial institutes so as to better the routing of finances for the development purpose as such. I have a very introductory and nascent understanding of what the entire concept entails, but that is my understanding.
A basic thing, see, Mudra loans,
Yes, sir.
SIDB, these all are refinancing institutions. What is the term refinance means?
My understanding is that these are the institutes that do not directly give finances to the public, where there are other entities like public sector banks and all, which give out the loans to the public, which have the public interface. These banks like Mudra Bank and all of these, we refinance these banks in the sense they provide the support to these other banks which are in touch with the public than them directly dealing with the public. So they are the refinancing banks.
National Infrastructure Pipeline?
Yes, sir.
National Infrastructure Pipeline. Are you aware of it?
Yes, sir.
Please.
It was a flagship program of the government to boost up the infrastructure across the country with a target of 1 or 2 lakh crores in the coming 5 to 6 years, and with huge investments in terms of roads and railways and connectivity, sir. So this, since India has this huge chronic problem of lack of efficient infrastructure, where we spend close to 14% of our GDP on logistical costs, whereas comparable developing and developed countries spend much lesser. I think it is very important for us to streamline our finances in terms of developing the infrastructure.
Is it achievable that we can very soon we can become $1 trillion economy?
At the current juncture, I don't think it can happen in the short term. It might happen in the medium term, depending on how our post-COVID recovery is going to be, and also in terms of how we upskill or reskill our demography of youth. India is poised to be the country with the largest uh, youth population in the next decade, sir. So I think how we reap the benefits of such an advantage is going to determine whether we'll be a $1 trillion economy or not.
One more question, which is your choice base. You gave Indian Foreign Service fifth choice, fifth preference. Can I know why?
Yes, sir. At the outset, I must tell you that I believe that Indian Foreign Service is as big a contributor to the nation as is the Indian Administrative Service or the Police Service. But for personal reasons, that I have parents who have underlying medical issues to attend to, so and they do not wish to move out of my hometown, sir. So they would want me to be in as close proximity as possible because I need to attend to them, which is the only reason I've chosen IAS and IPS and IRS over the foreign service.
Okay. Your father is a superintendent of Central GST.
Yes,
What is this GST?
it's a goods and service tax which was introduced in the year 2017 in terms of integrating the entire country into one nation, one market, so as to weed out the issues of different taxation rates in different states, causing hurting the business interest and profitability.
It is a destination based or origin based tax.
It's a destination-based tax.
Means what?
The goods will be taxed in the domicile of consumption rather than the domicile of origin.
Okay. Anti-profiteering authority.
Yes, sir. It has been brought in so as to ensure that the benefits that the companies are getting or the entities are getting because of the GST are effectively passed on to the end consumer and not just pocketed by the middle corporator. So that is why the anti-profiteering authority was brought in after GST.
Okay. Are you aware of the difference between National Statistical Survey Organization and Central Statistical Organization, NSSO and CSO?
Earlier they were different, but I believe they've been merged to form the National Statistics Organization under Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation.
Yes, correct. So earlier, what was the difference?
So earlier, I believe NSS2 was more into this household service, 220L household service that was happening every 5 years and all of that. Whereas the Central Statistics Organization was compiling the indices like the consumer price index of at the national level and the index of industrial production, etc. So that is all I can think of right now.
So you are treasurer of the Malayalam Literary Society, Malayalam language. How many classical languages are there in India?
So currently, there are 6 classical languages in India.
Why? Because there is new demand for another language. What is that new language which is asking for classical language status?
I'm not aware of it, sir. I'll look it up after.
Okay, it is Marathi. What they will get if they become if they get classical language status?
One thing is that the classical languages have specific concentrated efforts in terms of their furtherment at the university levels, etc. And also, I think there will be a better preservation in terms of the
You know
culture
or you are
associated with
guessing?
the. No, this is my guess. I do not know.
The GST is termed as the most complex legislation of post-independent India. Do you believe the same?
Not fully, sir. Because I feel the intention is correct in terms of having a seamless integration across the country in terms of taxes. But of course, there are going to be procedural difficulties as we transition from the earlier regime to the new regime. So, given the complex difficulties and special difficulties that each state have in their own right, it becomes difficult as we transition. And I believe it's a short-term trouble that we have to endure. And the other reason is also that the integration in terms of the GST portal or to the GST network becomes particularly difficult for the lower rung of the corporate sector, so particularly the MSMEs and all of them. The adaptation costs are really high, so which is why they call it very complex. So I think on that count, there should be concentrated efforts from the side of the government in terms of making it easy. The compliance burden should be really made lesser for the MSMEs and other smaller companies.
This thing, Tenali is very nationally famous. Why? Because the Sunduru masquerade was a national issue. Lot of uproar happened in 1990s because of this masquerade. It is mainly nearly 17 Dalit were being killed by the upper caste. Do you believe in this 21st century also the exploitation, the discrimination, the atrocities against the SC communities or ST communities are happening?
Yes, sir, I believe very much so in the countryside, in the rural areas. They take more manifest forms in terms of physical attacks and all of that. Whereas in the case of urban areas, it takes more latent forms in terms of insidious discrimination or other subtle discrimination in day-to-day life. So I believe it more or less is very much there. If anything, it has only taken different forms, but the content of it still remains the same.
So if you become a district collector, what steps you will take to lessen the exploitation, discrimination and atrocities against SC communities?
So, primarily, I think one thing that I've been observing is that there is a uh, uh, lot of SC population in just the very lower ranks of the administration, sir. Or even in the sector of, in the case of jobs, if we observe across the various levels of government, not just in Andhra Pradesh, but everywhere, SCs are just thronging the lower ranks of the job, the menial jobs and other jobs, but not the white collar ones, sir. So there continues to be this lack of capabilities to use up the case of reservations and gain upward mobility. So primarily, I would do take up the programs of educating the SC population and strictly implementing the Prohibition of Manual Scavenging Act, and also ensure financial empowerment in the short term, so some sort of bridging until they are able to take the benefits of reservation. So these are the three areas I would work on if I become the discipline.
Uh, you studied in St. John's English medium school. Who is this St. John's and who is this St. Stephen's, your graduation college names?
So Saint John, there are actually two Saint Johns. One is Saint John the Baptist. He is believed to be one of the 12 disciples of Jesus. In fact, the youngest one, and who went on to preach about the life of Jesus after that. And then there is Saint John the Evangelist. He is considered as no, as a primary figure in terms of Christianity, especially in the New Testament of the Bible. Sir. So there are two different Saint Johns. And coming to Saint Stephen, sir, he is the first. He is considered to be the first martyr in Christianity. He was stoned to death in the first century AD by the then Jewish regime because his teachings were considered blasphemous. So and in 1857, sir, when a lot of Christian converts were put to death in the 1857 revolt at Delhi, the Church of Delhi has adopted this Saint Stephen as their patron. Sir. So it is from this adoption of Saint Stephen as a patron by the Anglican Church of Delhi that a college drew that name and taken up that name.
And finally, as your hobby is cooking, my final question is: so if you are a district collector and you went to a government school whereby the quality of midday meal scheme is deteriorated, so if you want to improve the food quality among all the government schools, what steps you will take?
So firstly, my I was in a government school for 2 years, in my fifth standard and sixth standard. And what I observed is that the last person who is entrusted with the duty of cooking actually gets a very paltry sum of the actual funds that are sanctioned. So there are a lot of middlemen who siphon off a lot of funds, and only very few money goes to the last person who is actually entrusted with the cooking. So as such, they're forced to reduce the quality of food to ensure it's viable. So one thing I'll ensure is that there are no middlemen, and the final person who gets the duty of cooking is the one who is getting the money directly. And secondly, sir, in terms of ensuring procurement of proper grains also, sir. So what happens in most of the cases is that the grains that are sold at subpar rates because of low quality, etc., are procured and sent for this. So I'll also ensure the quality checks every week or every fortnight to ensure that the proper grains are procured using the resources. So effective resource management is something that I'll also concentrate on. So two things. So one is eliminating the middlemen, and second is effective resource management through quality checks.
Very, very good, Vijay. See, Vijay, yes.
I'll get a note and a pen to note down the feedback. Yes, sir. Please go ahead.
You have to go in detail with respect to Telugu. Why? Because while opening the tab, I am seeing Telugu.
Yes, sir.
GST, everything about GST. Everything about GST. Then Guntur, chili, why Guntur is famous. Shunduru masquerade is a national, international issue.
I'm sorry, I missed that out, sir.
Yes. Shunduru masquerade, about famous for Tenali it is. Then economics, I am telling you why, because your college is a very good college, St. Stephen's College, University of Delhi, you will be bombarded with economics. You have to go with economics.
Yes,
Everyone will love to ask the questions on economics.
I'm aware of that, but since, like I've told you, I did not get a lot of time to take up the session, so I'll be better prepared for the next session in terms of economics.
SFI, it's communist or Congress? You mentioned SFI. So SFI, know everything about the SFI. Pratibha Puraskar, little bit more.
In terms of
qualifications for getting the award.
Okay, sir.
In the award, what we will be getting? Cooking. The cooking is one such hobby. Nearly 10% of the aspirants will be keeping it as cooking as a hobby. So you have to tell something which is, see, at my time, there is one particular lady, madam called as Klim Shungla madam was been there. She was very much interested in nutrition. So when we drive the interview while cooking, they asked if you put the words like nutrition, diet, healthy food, then they will feel more interesting and the interview will drive towards you. So while doing the cooking hobby, while reading about it, I had some content I will send you about the cooking also. So nutrition related, diet related, healthy food related, you make some notes and use accordingly.
Okay, sir.
Basically, your English is very, very good. Your posture is very good. Just you have to go through the content. Don't use the word guess.
Okay. I
If
felt
you,
that after I said that, I felt that it was honestly not a guess as such, whatever I had for the limited understanding, but I figured that out. So thank you
if
for
you
calling.
don't answer 70% questions also, no problem. But don't use the word guess. No or I don't know.
Hmm.
Sorry, sir, I don't know. Yes, sir, I know. I am aware of it.
Sir, what if it's a case that I'm making an informed estimate or informed guess that it can't be fully wrong, but it might not be exactly apt. So what do I do in such situation? Do I go ahead
Sir,
and tell the answer?
I am aware of it partially. I am aware of it partially. I am placing in front of you. I am aware of it partially and placing in front of you. So shall I? Yes, please. Then you come up. That's it. Very good. Again, within 1 week, again we will have. This time the questions will be on economics. This time the questions will be on social also.
Okay,
Social
sir.
aspects.
I was actually aware of this before, so I had to go through the budget and economic survey, which I did not get to do this time. I'll do that in the course of next 1 week. But apart from that, you were talking about Telugu. So what exactly do I need to know about the language Telugu as such?
Yes, Telugu. It is a classical language. History of Telugu. Who, because of which kingdom the Telugu became popular? What, how much, with respect to the percentage of population speaking in India, Telugu stands at which number?
Hmm.
Those information. Malayalam also. Why? Because you told Malayalam literary. So language came up. So Malayalam, you are Telugu, so you will get the question on Telugu, you will get the question on Malayalam. They will ask you why you joined Malayalam Literary Society. What about Telugu Society? Telugu Society is not there.
There is no Telugu society.
Yes, that's it. Your body language, English is awesome.
All right, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
It was nice talking.
Yes.